Hello, it's Parm King, the Dungeon Master for Legends of Barovia. Today we're going to talk about hex crawls and how to use them in Foundry. Now, a special shout out to Harrison, who's also running a Curse of Strahd campaign, and he came up with using a hex crawl using Foundry in the ruins of Berez, in the swamps of Berez. And it was him that gave me inspiration to come up with this more simple concept. Now, I love Foundry as much as everybody else does, and one problem with Foundry is you can become addicted to it and go down the Foundry rabbit hole and spend so much time doing something that, well, you overcomplicate your life. And what I try to do in these Foundry tips is keep things as simple as possible so we can really enjoy the game and let Foundry do all its magic behind the scenes with the various modules. Now, on this particular tip, there's no modules necessary. In fact, it was right there staring in my face all along. There is something already built into Foundry that allows you to do some hex crawl mechanics. So first of all, what is a hex crawl and why do we want to incorporate it into our game? Well, most of the time in playing Dungeons and Dragons or various role-playing games, we're at Destination A, we go to Destination B, perhaps the dungeon or the keep or the village, but there's no travel in between. In my current campaign, I represent traveling between these two places with various kind of cutscenes, maybe a Theater of the Mind map or something in between, but we don't really represent traveling in there. And some things that happen while we travel, whether it's an encounter or we find something along the road or perhaps even getting lost. I decided to come up with a simple hex crawl mechanic and use it in Berez just like Harrison did, and try this out to see if I can make it work and incorporate some of those cool ideas from hex crawl mechanics. So what do we do first? Well, first we're going to need a battle map that we're going to zoom way out because it's going to be our terrain map that our party is going to move around on, and then we're going to put a hex grid over that. Now, in this particular case, I created a map using Dungeon Draft that represents all of the swamp area in Berez, and it's a fairly large-scale map. As you can see as I zoom out, it's a big map, so I zoomed way in to create scale. Remember, this is an abstract map that's representing huge areas. Now, it doesn't really matter the size of your hex or your scale of your hex, and that really depends on the scale of hex map that you're using. For instance, a hex could represent 6 miles or 5 kilometers or 1 mile or 100 feet or 100 yards. It's all scale dependent. In my swamp of Berez, each hex represents approximately 100 to 150 feet or 50 to 75 meters is what it represents. And the token represents the entire party. So once we have our map on here, which the players are going to traverse on, the party's going to traverse on our hex crawl map, and we have our various locations. This is my version of Berez. It varies considerably different from rules as written. I have a keep in the swamps. I have a old walled city, a village, and some other locations in here. And you can see it's fairly extensive and large. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a party icon. And a party icon is a token that all the members are going to view. So I just used this shield here, and the next thing you're going to do is you're going to configure permissions. So all players are going to be observers of this token, and then you're going to select one player to move the token. Now, what we did was we just rolled d20 dice, every player did, and the highest player gets to control the party token. Now, when the players are playing the hex crawl, all the players are observing the token as it moves. Only one player is moving the token. The next thing, once we've figured out who the owner, and we decided this last night. We just began the hex crawl at the end of our last session, is our warlock, Ilianis. He won the role, and so he is going to control the party token. The next thing we need to determine in here is the range of view. Now remember, I'm using about 50 meters or 100 to 150 feet per hex, and so when we click on our token here, we want the range of view, because they're in a swamp. I am running the fog from the FX module, is they're only going to see 1.5 hexes away. That's going to be their maximum vision. Now, how do I use the rules of my hex crawl? Well, as long as they are heading on a trail or a road or along the coastline of a river, they can't get lost, right? As long as the trail passes through their vision, or the coastline passes through their vision, full vision, they can continue to move without the risk of getting lost. In this case, I have a very dimly lit trail. You can barely see it here. There's some rocks. My players can see it. I don't know if it shows up here too well. As long as my players stay on the path of these rocks here, as you can see, they won't get lost. And as you move, the fog of war reveals terrain that you've already previously visited. So as long as they're traveling down this path of rocks, which you can kind of see here, and the players are zoomed in to watch this, they won't get lost. But what happens when the players move away from the rocks and they have here this path that's down below? Now they get lost. Now, as soon as they get lost, as soon as a landmark feature, a path that they can follow, a trail, a road, a coastline is out of visibility, out of their visible range, which we have right here, I'm going to have them roll a get lost or are they lost DC check. Now you can use various mechanics here. You can have them roll a skill check like a survival check or a nature check, or come up with your own navigation mechanic, perhaps a wisdom modifier or whatever you'd like to do. So in this case, I roll a survival check. Now if they're only one hex away from the road, the path, which is right here, I make it fairly easy. It's a DC 10 check that they have to beat. If they are able to beat it, they can continue on. They don't have to go back to the road. They can continue north here. They're coming into some muddy area at this point. But the further the way they get, the higher the DC check is to see if they can not remain lost. So what happens when they become lost? Well, that mechanic's already built into the game. We just click on our light icon, we click on the fog of war, and we reset the fog of war. What this does is it represents the players being lost. They can only see immediately around them. All that area that the fog of war had previously revealed is gone. They can no longer know or have knowledge of where they previously went. Now, of course, they can go ahead and backtrack until they find that trailhead again. And here they are. They find that trailhead. They're back on that trail. But they, again, were lost. And that's the whole point of resetting fog of war, represents them getting lost. Now, what about random encounters? Well, we're all familiar with random encounters. Maybe every so many moves or so many hexes, you can roll from a random encounter table. And I started that last night. I prefer a chance encounter. And let me show you how I do that mechanic. So a random encounter obviously is, you can set up a random encounter table right in Foundry, or you can just roll the dice yourself and have a list of random encounters. Curse of Strahd has a ton of great random encounters already built into the campaign book, but there's a lot of people that have written third-party stuff as well. But what I prefer to do is what I call a chance encounter. And what you do on the map is you pre-put in creatures on your map. So here I have a zombie, and the zombie is currently invisible. I have it set to invisible so the players can't see it. And the way I run a chance encounter means is my hex map is pre-populated with the creatures. I pre-populate with the creatures that the players have a chance of running into. Now, if the monster encounter on my hex map is in visible range, they have a 45% chance of having that encounter. So I roll a d20, and if it's below a 10, if I roll any numbers between 1 and 9, they go into a combat encounter. If the players are directly on top of the creature, they don't know it because it's invisible, they have a 75% chance of having that encounter. They have anything below a 15 on the d20, that encounter happens. Now, what happens with the encounter? They're obviously not going to fight as a party token. I have a individual generic battle map. And the way I do this generic battle map, and let me just get rid of some of these so we can go ahead and do this again from this beginning. The way I do this generic battle map is I have it set up, it's a large map. It's a generic swamp terrain, but I have certain features in there that I can begin that combat encounter in based on what's going on with the party. So if the party was camping in the upper right-hand corner, I have like a lean-to and a little fire pit over here. If they happen to be along the river on a trail, I have a tree and a river over here. If they're near a bridge or a dock, I have this area. Or if they're just in the open terrain on the trail. So you're using one kind of large-scale generic swamp battle map, and you place the tokens based on the features of what's currently happening when they run into these zombies. Now, the one variable is I know they're running into zombies, and using my chance methodology allows me to kind of understand in what creatures they're going to run into. I get to pre-place creatures that I think are appropriate for the particular area that they're going to run into. The next thing I'm going to do is, based on the creatures, I'm going to roll a dice to determine how many creatures. Now, if it's a really powerful creature, perhaps like some trolls or a shambling mound, what I'm going to do is roll like a 1d4 to determine how many trolls. And you're going to scale this based on your party size and your party level. Now, if I want to know what the average, because I'm going to have a bunch of them, I'm going to roll 2 dice. Now, anytime you roll 2 or more dice, you're creating a probability distribution curve. That allows me as the DM already know on average how many creatures are going to show up. Now, these are zombies, and I want on average about 7 zombies. So I'm going to roll 2d6. And 2d6 means that the odds of me rolling a 7 are higher than any other number on there. There are 6 ways to roll a 7 on a pair of dice. 5, 2, 2, 5, 6, 1, 1, 6, 4, 3, and 3, 4. And 6 out of 36, well, that's 1 and 6. Now, versus a 12, which means I have to roll 2 6, there's only 1 out of 36 chance of rolling a 12, or a 2 means I have to roll snake eyes. There's only 1 out of 36 chance. So I know right away that odds are when I roll the dice to determine how many zombies, and I'm going to use 2d6, it's probably going to be it's going to be close to 7, between probably 5 and 9, 6 and 9 is probably going to be that average in there. So I don't know, I could be wrong here. I can just fumble this roll. I'm going to roll 2d6, and it's going to determine how many zombies. So I have 6 zombies that are going to appear. Now I have in here what I call my random encounter group, and I have my undead. So I'm going to grab in 6 zombies. I think I rolled a 6, right? Yeah, I rolled a 6. So I'm going to grab 6 zombies, and I'm just going to put them in here like this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you can scatter them around. The other thing I highly recommend doing, and this helps avoid accidental or subconscious metagaming, is I click on each one of these tokens and I re-roll their hit points. So each one's going to be slightly different before I begin this encounter. So this one's going to be 27, one is 18, one here is 20, and oh, there's a really low one, 14, there's a 24, and there's a 23. Now, it only takes a couple seconds to do that, and the reason you want to do that is it subconsciously avoids that metagaming. If they kill the first zombie and they go, oh yeah, zombies have 22 hit points, and they know that they only need 22 hit points to hit the second zombie. By changing it up a little bit, they're going to be a little surprised, hey, that zombie didn't go down, maybe it's a little bit more powerful, or they take one down, it's really easy. So change it up, just highlight them all right now, and just jump right into your combat encounter. And here you go, and you're in the combat encounter. Go ahead and roll for initiative. When the combat scene's all done and they're healing up, you're going to jump back into your Hex Crawl Map again, and this creature is no longer gone, and they're going to continue on their merry way, hopefully not getting lost. Now, on my particular map, you're going to have important locations that the players are going to get to. I have a swamp village over here in the old ruins of Brez, which I made an old walled city. I have a keep. And in these areas, what you're going to do on your big hex map is you're not going to put a lot of walls in. Remember, the walling here in your hex map is really terrain type walling. It's like there's a cliff there, there's a big wall there. It's not going to be highly detailed walling. It's really there to block vision if there's a big cliff, or to keep them from going somewhere. You're going to notice here on my giant keep, on my hex map, there's nothing inside. It's just barren inside. The reason for that is when the players get to this keep, or if they even find the keep, and they get up to the drawbridge here, I immediately take them to the battle map of the keep. And here they are. They're at the battle map of the keep. And my players can now, you can see the players are broken up into their individual players. and they can begin their exploring of the keep here. Here's the drawbridge, and they can go inside the keep and explore the keep and go through that quest or adventure or encounters or whatever that may be. When they leave the keep, they're back to the battle map right outside the keep here, and then they can travel on their way, explore through the ruins of the town. And for different areas, you can have just either theater of the mind maps or battle maps. You might want a theater of the mind map for a particular scene that they're in because it's going to be more role playing, or a battle map because you're going to have some combat. And that's pretty much it. I'm keeping it simple. The mechanic is pretty fun so far. You have this lost mechanic. You have this zooming into battle maps. Now, if this works really well for me, I'm going to probably expand this out to all of Barovia. The players already have a kind of a old handwritten map of Barovia, which I have right here. You can see I use this in my campaign. I made a video about this. And this just gives them an estimate of where everything is on the map. But I might use the actual map of Barovia that comes with Curse of Strahd, put the hexes on it, and if this hex mechanic works well here in Brez, I might make the entire Barovia hex map, and each hex is, a mile or a kilometer or whatever that scaling I want to be, and then allows them to travel, to camp along the road, and me to pre-plan those encounters, and then zoom in onto a theater of the mind map or onto a battle map. I think that'll work really well. Well, anyway, that was me, and that's my idea for hex crawling using Foundry and just Fog of War. Some simple ideas using chance encounters instead of just random encounters. Let me know what you think in your comments below if you have any ideas or suggestions. I like to keep it simple. This is a really simple. You don't even need any modules for this. And please like and subscribe to my channel. Until next time, may all your rolls be critical 20s.